Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the All Things Interesting podcast. On this episode, I am joined by producer, writer, podcaster, and creative consultant Phil Rosenberg. Phil Rosenberg has worked with many major entertainment companies from ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, and Walt Disney to MTV, Sony, Food Network, iHeartMedia, and TBS, to name a few. Some of his work includes the Are You the One reunion, the 2018 iHeartRadio Music Awards, the 2017 Video Music Awards, as well as the Fox New Year's Eve 2020 Countdown, to name a few. In our conversation, we cover everything from his journey to producing and writing, as well as what it's like working in the entertainment industry and what it is like hosting his own podcast called Flick Picks. It's a really entertaining conversation, and if you enjoyed the show or the episode, feel free to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave a comment. So, without further ado, enjoy the episode with my guest, Phil Rosenberg.
Dude, I got my snowball set up. I got my podcast set up just for you.
I figured as much. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, yeah. It's we've done Trodcasts. We did like some interviews with some people. And we just every time we would message them, we'd be like, just a reminder, headphones, hopefully with a microphone. If not, like, please make sure that like the microphone on the computer is substantial enough. Yeah, it's fun doing it. I miss it. We haven't done it in over a year now.
I took a look at the most recent episode of that. It's called Flick Picks, right? It was you and your friend Tom, and you're basically talking about movies and kind of just film in general, but you had like 121 episodes already. How long did it take you guys to accrue all of those?
Those last year's 2019, about 3 years. 3 years. We started it in 2016. We had always messaged each other and like been like, oh, did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? About like casting news or about something that's going into production or anything going on. But then when it was honestly when we found Cast, like I follow this really cool website called Product Hunt, and basically people upvote either apps or services or like anything in the tech space. It's like people who are like startup developers and people who deal with UX and UI stuff usually go there, but I just like it because I find like cool, new, interesting apps on there. And Cast came up on there, and I was like, dude, you're in New York, I'm in LA. We wanted to do a podcast. This is a way we can do it. So so it was honestly this form of doing it that helped us do it. So then we figured out a structure and we started doing it and tried to do it every week. Sometimes work for either of us got in the way, but yeah, it was a fun thing to do with my best friend.
That's awesome. It sounds a lot like Reddit. I know you mentioned like upvoting, so it's like people post things and they'll upvote it or downvote it relative to like how popular it is by like the people talking about it, which is pretty cool. I've never heard about it before. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Sometimes if you go to a app or site when it's like first launching, sometimes you'll see like Product Hunt #1 like upvote of the day or something like that. A lot of times I'm just a big old tech nerd.
Me too. I enjoy technology a lot. You mentioned that it kind of went on hiatus and you have 121 episodes already. But I kind of figured, like, did everything kind of just like shut down when theaters really just shut down? I mean, you can't really review films as much if they're not really coming out in theaters. So I kind of figured, well, you can't really talk about something if productions also shut down, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, we stopped like last summer, I had started work on Little Mermaid Live, and went back out to LA to work on that. And it just, the scheduling with everything and me being 3 hours behind again, it just kind of threw everything off. So we kind of just lost track that way. And then, once we had been saying, like, we got to start it back up. But, like, both of us were, like, busy and yada, yada, yada. You know what your late 20s are. But yeah, then pandemic struck and it was, like, literally every movie. There were so many movies. If it had happened 1 month later, there were so many movies coming out in April that I really wanted to see, and now I have no idea when they're coming out.
I was super hyped up for the new James Bond movie. It was like Bond 23, and I was really
Phoebe Waller-Bridge did the script. I'm like, are you kidding me? The French Dispatch, there's so many good things that were and that's the other thing. It's like you don't even know, like Tenet, they push back week to week to week. It's Mulan.
When is that even delayed till? Tenet? It's not moved till the end of this. I don't know. I thought it was like the end of this year.
I think it's the end of this year, but I feel like I saw it's releasing earlier worldwide. Within this day and age, like it's gonna get torrented and easily uploaded before it gets here, and that's gonna ruin it. That's why I think Disney's doing the smartest they can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're just releasing all of their movies on Disney Plus before they come out in theaters, aren't they? I think they're coming out with Mulan. Isn't that
Mulan?
Today?
It's a in September. It's a $30 charge, which I saw a lot of people complaining about. But I'm like, if you're in a major city, that's 2 tickets right there. Like, that's easy. Yeah. You and a roommate can watch it, and that also, like, they spent $200 million on it. Obviously, they're not just going to be like, and here it is for free.
Exactly. I don't understand. Like, if you are a whole family of, like, say 3 to 5 people,
like
$30 isn't that bad to watch a movie.
That's why, like, a lot of the drive-ins now, if they charge by car, it's so nice because you can just also, most money is coming from concessions anyway, so it's like you charge per car $20-$30 per car. You have 4 people in your car. That's great. And then you buy a bunch of popcorn and drinks and stuff.
Exactly. Just pack the car full of like 5 to 10 people
somehow.
Exactly. Yeah. I think
honestly, projectors aren't that expensive. People should just be buying them and doing it on their houses.
Exactly. I know, like, in Texas, there were a lot of places that, like, shut down, so they just use the parking lots as drive-in movie theaters. I'm like, that's freaking smart. I know Arizona had a drive-in movie theater, and they shut down, like, not too long before the pandemic hit. I'm like, damn, that would have been really, really good to have open for people who really wanted to go see films, but just couldn't because of all the movie theaters shutting down. So,
yeah, AMC sounds like it's going bankrupt. There's a lot. I've always wanted drive-ins to come back, so if this is the reason they do, I'm fine with it. It's such a cool experience. I think it's like it's a reason to go to the movies again. It's like, oh, you want to go to the drive-in? Like, come on, what? Like, let's go back to the 50s. Okay, not like the 50s when like social and everything like that, but like in terms of like asking a girl out on a date and saying you want to go to the drive-in, like, that's cool. Come on.
I mean, I get it, but like, you have to wonder though, is the time of movie theaters over now, considering the pandemic? People are kind of just shifting over to HBO Max. You have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have Disney Plus, you have Cinemax, Showtime. Like, what is the need for going to a movie theater if people could literally just watch these movies from their own home? Or for those out there who probably torrent or whatever they do, like, there's no need to go to a theater. But I totally agree with you that it's kind of just for the atmosphere or their environment. You want to be in the theater, you want to be at a drive-in theater or whatever, because it's nice to be in like a social gathering.
Oh, you know? Yeah. I mean, we're definitely, I think we're going to see the end of giant chains. I think it's going to be more independence and more like, you're going to see a lot more Alamo Draft Houses. You're going to see a lot more Nighthawks. It's going to be, I think it's just going to be a lot more, and it's going to be, I mean, I hope this doesn't happen. I think I saw it was either Disney or Netflix was trying to buy a theater. Granted, Disney has the El Capitan, which I kind of feel like has to be a monopoly. Can't you, like, no, they had like the whole like rules back. I film school right now, where like the studios used to own the theaters and then they had to make it because it was a monopoly. But anyway, I don't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. But to answer the actual question that you asked, I don't think theaters will be gone for good. I think there is still, like, yes, there are movies that are meant for Netflix. There are sometimes movies that I go to the theater and I'm like, they could have put that on Netflix and I think it honestly would have done better.
Yeah.
And then there's things where it's like, I don't want to see Avengers Endgame. Like, I mean, granted, I'm lucky enough that at my parents' house, there is a movie room where we have a projector screen, but not everyone has that. Like, you don't want to watch Avengers Endgame on like even a 50-inch TV. Like, watch it on the big fucking screen, like these like James Cameron epics, these giant epics. But I mean, we had that. There was always films like the like Netflix ilk that we have now. There was VHS. There were things that just went directly to VHS and never went to theaters. And not that we're at the same level in quality, because I do think Netflix is definitely giving green lights to a lot more creative things, and a lot more people are realizing that if they go to those studios, they have a lot more freedom. Mm-hmm. But I think that we are in a very interesting time. TV has changed so much in the last 10 years. Movies, the entire entertainment sphere, I think, will always be ever changing. But right now, with the speed of technology and everything, I think it's such a fluid thing that for anyone to call like, oh, this is the end of this or this is the end of that, I feel like it's, especially with just like this millennial generation of nostalgia, we're not going to let like that kind of shit leave. Like, we are a generation that is trying to bring back record players and trying to bring back like actually taking photos on film. Like, I think we'll keep these things alive. Also, like, it's fun going to the movies. Like, it's an experience. Maybe not all the time, but I think it's fun.
I agree with you. I mean, I think the last film that I saw in theaters was Ad Astra, which had Brad Pitt in it, and it was that. Honestly, I guess I was like more hyped for that film. Maybe it was that or Uncut Gems, actually, which I saw. I'll be honest, I was very hyped for those movies. I was like, damn, these are gonna be Oscar-winning movies. Turns out, I mean, for me, they were good. They were all right, but it makes me concerned because a lot of movies, in my own opinion, shouldn't be in theaters, and they should be direct to Netflix or Hulu or HBO, because they just don't live up to my hype, or based off the review or the prior reviews, people say, oh, this is going to be a 90% or 95%, but it's all just really subjective. You can't really expect one person to agree with another person's review on that. So that's my main concern.
I totally
with the
get
industry. That. And I mean, one thing I really think about the entertainment industry is that we're kind of moving away from films, and I really think this is the golden age of television shows. I mean, you 100%. Have Game of Thrones, you had Breaking Bad. I don't have like any other film or TV shows off the top of my head to list here, but I think people spend more time at home than they do going to movie theaters, and why not just binge a really high quality TV show by a high production studio, as opposed to hoping that one film is really gonna like live up to the hype.
Well, because you can actually explore the world and explore the characters and explore the story. You don't have to just shove it into 2 hours and then once you realize it did really well, be like, oh, let's make like 6 more of these. Like, they're making 5 John Wicks. I love the John Wick movies, but like, I'm like, I don't think we need 5 guys. But also they're doing like a show, and so, but
they're doing it with the Matrix too, though. Matrix 4, isn't it?
I want that just because I want Keanu back in the seat, and also because I want to see what the Wachowski sisters can do after everything with Sense8 and all that stuff. I feel like they've had a lot of stuff cooking, and
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, from my perspective, it seems like the story ended after 3, but if they manage to somehow put together something, then by all means. I'm not a big fan of when, I guess, production companies decide to just keep making sequels on sequels when there's not a need to. I mean, there are some exceptions to the rule. I know there's Toy Story, which had 3 sequels and a possible 4th, I'm assuming.
I very much didn't think they should have made the 4th one when I went into it, but for the just the technology alone of what they did, like the just look at Toy Story 1 to Toy Story 4 and to see how far computer technology has come is astounding. Like, you see rips on their threads. Like, you see they literally researched how toys get the wear and tear on them and added those things to certain toys. Like, how would a kid play with this toy and where would it have more rips? And it's just or like the dust particles through the air from the, like, there is so much like intricacy, but also the average viewer isn't going to notice those things, care about those things, or you know what I mean? Like, it's like people might love, like, to me, one of the best movies of the last 5 years is Into the Spider-Verse. And although I could talk at length about it, some people are just like, it was awesome, it looked really cool. And it's just like, that's it for some people. But there's so much more behind it, and I feel like that's also what people don't understand about the industry, is like all the hours and all the stuff that goes into it, which is why it is sad when like a movie doesn't do well and you're like, you see people shitting all over it and you're like, people spent a year, 2 years of their life doing this, and you're just shitting all over it. Granted, I on my podcast, if you've listened to it, have shit all over people's careers, but anyway.
That's the thing though, because if you're an audiophile, which is someone who's like really, really into headphones, for example, you're really going to take the time to break down the depth of like audio quality for music, for example. Whereas if you're into film or media of any sort, you're going to be more in tune with the deeper meaning and deeper layers of films and television shows. Whereas if you're just like a standard, viewer or not really a connoisseur, you're not really going to pay much attention. You're going to just follow the reviews and casually watch it as something entertaining. So it kind of really depends what side of the boat you're on here. And I think with the Toy Story example, Pixar is just on a whole nother level here. I mean, they're always on the cutting edge when it comes to technology and special effects. It's just there's second to none. I mean,
them and ILM are they're doing, at this point they're just making movies to show off the incredible technologies they're creating. They're doing it essentially just to win the Oscars that no one actually sees, because they have the scientific Oscars like the night before the actual Oscars that everyone watches. But they're winning every award because they like made this brand new camera that does this crazy thing. Them and James Cameron, I feel like, are the people who continually just win awards in that category.
Yeah, and I love seeing that stuff, even if it's not necessarily for the entertainment value, but just to see how far along special effects have come along. And, I mean, for you've been in the industry for many years now. You're a producer, writer, podcaster, consultant, and I looked at who you've worked with, and it's like 24 major producers, and I'm just impressed by that. You've worked with a lot of these entertainment companies, so you kind of know the inner workings. You see it from a different perspective, and I really want to like kind of dive into that though here, because you had the experience of working on different areas of entertainment, but I'm really curious here, where did this all start? Because it sounds like you're incredibly passionate about this.
Very passionate about everything in the arts sphere. Growing up, my parents were always the artsy parents. They performed in shows at the same theater that I did. Like, they had like a parents recital, and
like
then
Broadway?
Not Broadway, like community theater on Long Island. But they loved performing. They did performing all growing up, so they really instilled into me the theater aspect. And my uncle works on Broadway, so I was always seeing the backstage of it all. And movies were always a big part of my life too. Movies, television, everything in that space. But growing up, it was mostly acting and doing theater stuff. But by the time I got to high school, freshman year, when we were able to pick electives, we had film courses at the high school, and I took the courses and loved everything about the other aspects of the industry, the writing, the producing, the directing, all that fun stuff. Granted, I don't know if I would call half of what I did back then any of those words, writing, producing, or directing, but it was basically what instilled in me the maybe you shouldn't go to college for acting, and maybe you should go for film. And that's why I ended up going to Emerson.
Now you're one of 7 siblings here,
Yeah.
and you were raised by 3 parents, which is kind of one of the unique things that stood out to me here. I was talking to Jen about it earlier. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. 3 parents, 7 siblings, growing up on the East Coast, and kind of growing up in an artsy sort of environment here. So, what did that dynamic look like growing up with a family like that?
Well, first off, it's 6 siblings. I'm the seventh.
Ah,
I have 2 bio sisters and 4 step siblings. When I was going into my bar mitzvah year, my parents got divorced. And then my mother got together with my stepmother. And mom was with dad. Now she's with stepmom. The 2 of them got together, and me and my stepbrother, who is actually my age, literally played on the same soccer team. So we already knew the whole family. But these have been my siblings for longer than they haven't been my siblings. So, they're literally my siblings. But it was a crazy, wild time. My childhood was enjoyable. It was fun. I got to see, granted, I was in theater, but very early on, with my mom coming out, and being with a woman, it was very much love is love. I learned very early on that we don't judge people based on things like that. We shouldn't really judge people at all. We don't know where they came from or who they are. Why judge people when you could just be a nice person? But yeah, so that really helped shape my upbringing, and just parents always supportive of everything I did. They had me do sports. They never pushed me to be like a basketball player or anything. And like I did sports mostly until high school, but like they like really always supported whatever interested me and whatever was fun for me. And it's so interesting thinking from who my siblings are and family to where I am in my career, just because I'm literally the only person, well, besides my uncle, who is in any facet of the industry. Most family is education. My dad was a principal. My 2 moms are teachers. They literally work across the hall from each other.
oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. They one teaches like science and social studies, and the other teaches math and English for the same students. It's crazy. But one of my sisters is a guidance counselor, so majority of my family does education. Some are in nonprofits. One works at HuffPost. Everyone's doing different things. Lawyer, so many different things. But I somehow ended up in the entertainment world. But not for nothing. They all love entertainment and love everything. Like we still have it's not like I go home and they're like, so about this boring thing. Like we talk about movies and TV all the time, and it's the main source of chatter for us.
I find it interesting though. You're one of 7 here, and you grew up in a family that is very entertainment centric. Not in terms of the careers they're doing now, but just growing up with them working in community shows and whatnot. I'm curious. It's interesting how one of the siblings end up really becoming embedded and focused on the entertainment industry in that sense, whereas the other siblings kind of go off in different directions. So I kind of find that to be really cool, how you kind of just took it upon yourself to become embedded and more entangled with the creative side, whereas your siblings kind of just took different directions, like with Huffington Post and law, for example. That really just stands out.
Well, when you're the baby, which I am, even though my stepbrother is literally only 20 days older than me, when you're the baby, you get to kind of choose a more route that isn't a normal, like, I feel like when you're the first kid, it's like, you gotta be like a doctor or a lawyer or something legit, and then it's like, by the baby, you're like, yeah, you could be a motocross biker if you want, whatever.
I've noticed that as well, like with my family, it's like, okay, well, my sister is the firstborn, so my parents wanted her to become a lawyer, and my brother, of course, had to go into the medical industry, And with me, I'm the third born, so you can just do whatever you would like to do.
Exactly. They don't care as much. They definitely are like, I don't really get how your industry works, but like, we'll support you and hopefully you have a job. Generally that is generally what it is.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I do want to dive more into the producing, writing, but the one question just preluding that here is you kind of lived on both the East Coast and the West Coast, and LA is typically known as being more soft, go with the flow, whereas New York, I've never been to New York, that is, but I've heard it's much more hard of a place. People are very direct. They have to be where they need to be. They're in a rush. What has kind of had more of an influence on you in terms of your direction in the industry?
That's interesting. My direction in the industry, I would say LA definitely shaped me more because I was out there for like the beginnings of my professional career, very much so. But New York shaped, I grew up in New York and lived here most of my life until college when I was in Boston. And New York shaped my personality and who I am and how I go about life. Like, I'm very fast. Like, I'm a fast walker. It killed me when I would walk behind people in LA and they would just be like cruising.
What's this guy's problem?
And I'm just like, where are we going, people? We're all walking down the street. Let's go. Yeah, I'm very much like a
places to be, people
exactly.
to see.
LA, I had a friend who, this happened to me. I literally, I called because I thought there was an accident, but it was just Waze rerouting me to a Taco Bell. Long story. But anyway, I called them and an interview and was like, hey, I'm going to be a little late because I was supposed to be early, but there's an accident, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, it's fine. If I called in New York and said I'm going to be late for an interview, they'd be like, don't bother coming in.
Next.
Like, they joked about bringing a burrito. Like, LA is so much more laid back, chill, but like, it does get down to brass tacks when you need to. Agents are agents. It's not like agents don't exist in LA and they have a very New York vibe to them. But yeah, they both helped shape me. New York gave me, I guess, the edge, and LA helped shave it off a little bit.
Right.
In a good way.
It just seems so night and day for me. And just looking specifically at the type of entertainment they both do, LA is more, I guess, film-centric, whereas New York is more Broadway-centric. And it's such a weird dynamic.
And television-centric.
Really? You would
New
say
York,
that?
New York has so much television. I don't know if I wouldn't say the same amount as LA, but New York, every cop show shoots in New York. Like, everything is Marvelous Miss Maisel, Gotham, Broad City, Mr. Robot, Person of Interest. Like, I feel like New York is like the only place besides LA where TV is. I guess Atlanta is another big place.
That's the thing, though. Like, from an outsider looking in, how much of these shows are really filmed on a set versus filmed on location? You're a producer. You've worked on some of these networks.
Funny enough, I worked in location, so I can give you that exact answer.
Is it a big difference, though, like when they're working on set versus an actual location? Because, like, if you're working, for example, in New York producing a cop show, that's just a lot of work just to shut down a whole entire street just to get a couple shots.
Totally. So, first things first is, regardless of where you are, it's always going to be a set. There's always going to be things that are placed there that aren't actually in that, whether it's a sign, so it's still always going to be a set, but whether it's actually out in the street or if it's being built in a warehouse, for majority of things, a lot of it is, especially nowadays, since it's so much more single cam, it's not multicam, like in front of an audience, like they did back in the day with Friends, Cheers, all those type of shows. They have their main sets, like Gotham, it's the police precinct, or Wayne Manor. They have those main things, and then they'll have another stage that maybe has a couple ancillary ones that they just built for these few episodes in the season. But then generally, I mean, they'll go to warehouses in Long Island City. They'll go to all these different kinds of places. There's literally a team, the locations team. Whenever you see at the end of a show, unit production manager, that's the head guy of the locations team who is going to all these locations, making sure they're good. The locations people are making sure that the bathrooms are working, that if the fire alarm goes off, who's dealing with that, where the nearest precinct is, all these things. And you're there. Like, I worked on Fosse Verdon and I was location assistant. I was literally for a whole month just going to Snug Harbor in Staten Island every day as set decorators, and people just came in and brought sets and props and all this stuff in to turn our little, I don't even know a state park, I guess it's a little state park, into multiple, Munich, into New York. Like, it's so crazy to see what these people can do nowadays. One, with CGI, what the easiest things they can do, and then two, just with throwing a setup in a room and making it completely change. It's pretty incredible seeing how some of these places have changed when I was working in locations. But yeah, it definitely depends what the show is, but a lot of times they're doing a lot of places. But like I said, it's always a set. They're always having set deck come in and add stuff and add. But again, it's another thing that, like, if you're not in the industry, you don't think to, like, look at the bulletin board and see what it actually, like, I'm always that person who, like, likes to notice those things. Like, I mean, if you couldn't tell I was going to work in production when I was younger, I would, like, tweet at shows and be like, why is there, like, an ugly ass sticker over the Mac logo? You couldn't have just put a, like, case.
What
like, I would comment on things that,
I know
like,
there's like shows that like, there's a show on, what is it, Disney or Nickelodeon, where they have like a pair.
The Pair?
Yeah, exactly. What is that about?
Well, The Pair that's Dan Schneider. That's he likes to parody. Dan Schneider actually used to be a big he was one of my biggest inspirations growing up. But there's been a lot of controversy involving Me Too and people saying a lot of stuff, and it's always been people saying things, but nothing came out yet, so nobody really has said anything. So I'm definitely distancing myself from my love of him. But he definitely loves parodying stuff. But I mean, most of the time, the reason they have those stickers over they can't show the product, so they can't have the Apple logo. And instead of putting a case over it or something, they think to just cover it with a sticker. And who cares? You're not going to notice it. But I think it's very noticeable. But fun fact, villains. I'm definitely going to ruin this for people. Villains in movies cannot have an iPhone. Apple has made it.
What?
Stated it. And yeah.
What's the reason for that?
The creator of Shazam said it in a video. But basically it's your idea of what a person who has an iPhone is. If you think that bad guys use iPhones, are you going to buy an iPhone?
That's ridiculous, though.
It's so ridiculous, but it's very much in there. There's so many things that you don't notice are either product placement or are like a company has their hand in something. Like, most people don't realize that the Department of Defense has their hand in basically every movie that deals with the Army or anything. Wow. Marvel movies. Yeah, the military entertainment complex is a very interesting thing. Yeah,
that is insane. I think my understanding of why brands are typically hidden or replaced by like random logos was because strictly for advertising purposes, whereas the company didn't pay the studio money to advertise their brand.
Yeah,
so
that's generally what it is.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know the whole entire military or other companies like Apple were involved in that case. So that's just a lot of sensitivity, I think. Like, where's the freedom to be creative with your own work? Why do you have to be pressured by other companies to say, well, you can't show this because it's gonna give off a bad stigma of our brand or something, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's because they want the cooperation of them. It's because they want to be able to use fighter jets. They want to be able to use these things. So for them, it's the deal with the devil they have to do. You know what? You have to give your script over. You have to do these things just because. I don't think they all have to do like straight up propaganda, because like I know that like Captain Marvel and Independence Day definitely did some like very targeted advertising for the actual military, which like shouldn't have done that.
That's
but like
concern,
any
though.
Michael
I
Bay
keep
thing
hearing,
has
like, how,
the DoD
this is
all
just an
over
example I've heard, like where China's like deeply embedded with the entertainment industry. So you have to like wonder how much of an influence do like other countries have on the movies that are being produced here. I mean, it happens with brands. It happens with the DoD here. Like it. Wouldn't you think that a lot of these countries are going to influence how these films are made or curated towards a certain group?
I don't know if I'd say. I mean, the Chinese investors have been coming in, and when I was interning at Paramount back in high school, back in college, my final year, there was already talks. There was already Chinese investors already coming into Hollywood, and I was hearing much about it at the studio. But it's very much a thing that's been happening. Movies haven't really changed in any regard to be like, hail the Chinese Communist Party. So I don't think, I mean, I don't really think they're like, I'm not sure, but I don't think like the heads of studios are handing their scripts over to the Chinese investors. It's like most financiers. It's like you give the money and you get back money.
Right.
You're not really putting in your creative voice. But I mean, I could be completely wrong. I do not know. Though TikTok apparently seems to be
that's a whole nother
giving
mess.
Our information to the
I'm
gonna be really upset if we lose
like
TikTok.
That's going to happen in like the next week or so. Granted, I've never used TikTok.
He gave it 45 days.
Oh, 45.
He gave it 45 days. Yeah, he gave it 45 days. This is my plea to Jeff Bezos. Gen Z fucking hates the dude, rightfully so. I hate him as well. But if he wants to get on their good side, buy TikTok. It would be a fucking smart move.
Yeah.
He'd be a dumbass not
I keep
to.
hearing Microsoft is going to purchase TikTok.
I did see Microsoft was gonna. They've been talking about it, but if Jeff Bezos wants to be in good graces with Gen Z, it would be very smart. They really want to bring a guillotine to his house.
I might have to tag this in this episode then. I have never used TikTok before. I saw some of the videos you posted on your website. I'm like, I don't get it necessarily. Are these just like short like Snapchats or something? What's this about?
I didn't understand it for so long. The pandemic really put it in my hands and I had to get it. No, I downloaded it when like it first released years ago because I had an account when I re-downloaded it the 3 other times and had no idea how. But like I really didn't get it first. I downloaded it 3 times before I actually like got it, and the 3rd time was during the pandemic, and I was working on a graduation show and we were looking for content of people in their caps and gowns and stuff, and it was a really good easy place to get to people, and people respond to comments so quickly and so easily that it was just like a great way to get to people.
Wow.
So like while I was on there, I like started to understand it, and I started to learn that like their algorithm is what TikTok is. That's why when Reels just dropped, it's not the same. TikTok's algorithm is why it is what it is, because of the fact that like the thing I like most about it is, as opposed to every other social media site where you are building out your bubble of friends and family, and like, yeah, you're following an actor you really like or an artist you really like or blah, blah, blah. Yes, that as well. But or companies that are using it. But TikTok, it's all about discovery. It's as if the main point of Instagram was the explore page.
Right.
Because you have following and you have For You. I'm honestly on For You more than I'm on following. Like, I like watching people because the way the algorithm works is the more things you interact with, the more things it will send you similar to that.
Oh, I see.
So that's why sometimes if you get on there, you'll see like people being like, welcome to Black Lives Matter TikTok or welcome to LGBTQ TikTok. Like, and it's like, it's Reddit in a way of there's these like subcultures that come out of it. And most people think of it as just a dance app.
That's what I thought it was.
Because you get your Addison Rays and you get your Charlie D'Amelio's who become famous, but like then there are people who are like doing cool science experiments on there. There are people who are like the transitions that people do. The some of the stuff is really good, and then there's just like straight up activism on there. There's kids like watching Gen Z just like talk about history and talk about politics, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, wow, we really need to just listen to these kids because they seem to know a lot more than we did
than us
age.
Adults.
Yeah. But so it's just cool seeing like the whole spectrum of everything, and it's for what I do, it definitely helps to like know these kinds of technologies. So I definitely wanted to just learn a little bit more about it, and in doing so ended up getting obsessed with it. And yeah, my stuff is goofy as hell, but the whole thing is like using sounds. You reuse other people's sounds. If a sound starts getting popular, people will want to use it. So like that's the whole thing. Like the video that you might have seen where it's like where I had Michelle from Full House, there's a song that was very popular on TikTok where it's like, you got it.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
You got. And so I was like, Michelle says, you got it, dude. Why don't I just splice in her saying, you got it, dude, over the you got it. It didn't go as popular, but like that's the whole thing. It's all about remixing and rehashing. And there's this other part called duets where like you can do a side by side with someone. It's great. It's better than Vine. I never liked Vine. It is exactly what this generation is in an app, and I am going to be very upset if they take it away because I think it is a very good tool, and besides everything bad I've heard about it with China, it's great.
I must have had like a very skewed perspective on what TikTok was, because when I saw a few videos, it was just people dancing or doing some like crazy magic tricks or something. But with like your videos, there was like a little Dicky one, there was the Full House one you mentioned, there's the Rick and Morty one, which is pretty cool. There was a few that really stood out.
That's another trend where it's a parent saying, oh, you must be this person, and this person looks nothing like that. So that's why I did that, yeah. Again, it's all about following trend, but it's like fun, it's silly, it's fun, and it's just like, it's being, in a way, your most authentic self, but also incredibly curated because the time it takes to do some of those is so long.
I'll have to take another look at TikTok after this episode. Maybe I've literally just been missing out. All I do is like I'll focus on Instagram or Facebook, but like even then they're not really curated. Like YouTube and Spotify's algorithm, they're more curated because if you watch a video or listen to a song, next thing you know, oh, Discover Weekly, oh, discover this on YouTube, oh, it's like relevant to like what you watch.
Or related art, the amount of artists I found on Spotify through related artists, like I don't know. I feel like Facebook gave up a long time ago on their algorithm, and we're just like, we're embedded in everything for everyone, so we're not going anywhere.
They just make ads now. That's all they really care about. Let's get ad money. Social Network is literally one of my favorite movies of all time, but I fucking hate Mark Zuckerberg. It was a good film, but I 100% agree with that statement. I mean, I think when people like just get too successful and wealthy, they change for the worse, it seems like. I know we mentioned Jeff Bezos here and now Mark Zuckerberg, but it seems like a general trend in technology, really.
Very much so. A lot of white dudes who need to be called back down.
Oh, that was a heck of a tangent, though.
I feel like I'm like 43 minutes talking. I feel like I've given you nothing. I apologize. I'm a big talker, so
no, this has been entertaining so far.
Good.
So, just down to like brass tacks here before we really deep dive into like some of the stuff you've done. What is producing and what is writing in the entertainment industry, and what is it that you would specifically define yourself as doing in the industry?
Very good question. Producing, I don't think you could give an overall umbrella term in a sense because there are so many different facets of it. Whether you're talking about, like, I myself, Monday, I start work as an associate producer on the Emmys, and that is an award show. Associate producing on an award show is very different than associate producing a feature film, is very different than associate producing on a reality television show. So there's so many different aspects. So what I can speak to is definitely the the television special award show live, somewhat unscripted world of producing. But yeah, so essentially it's bringing together all of the teams, all of the other departments, and you are basically the one who is in charge of all of these things to make sure that they happen. You are making sure that the art departments are talking to who they need to talk to. You're making sure that talent is ready to go. You are prepping talent. You are, I mean, I myself, a lot of shows I do, I deal with a lot of the creative and tech kind of aspects for, especially during pandemic, I dealt with a lot of the tech stuff. So like I was working on
I saw that actually,
Disney Singalong
like a couple months back. That was really impressive, by the way. I was like sitting there, I'm like, how did they coordinate
Thank you.
all of these people to do a song all at once? That just makes no sense to me.
10 days.
Like give me an example here. How do you walk me through curating or developing one of these like songs across like different locations?
Yeah, I mean at that point when people weren't expecting more from quarantine content, it was so much more like, oh, talent agrees, you want to do this, awesome, we'll get a track sent out to them, we'll get all this stuff planned, we'll get them equipment if they're going to use equipment. But a lot of them used iPhones. A lot of them so a lot of people were using iPhones. They're such high quality. You don't realize how good they are until you see them on TV and you're like, wait, this is an iPhone? But I made these things called talent packs, which essentially had directions for setting up your iPhone to the proper specs. They had guides to how to frame yourself, for how to... Basically, we were giving everyone idiot-proof PDFs that basically were just like, here is everything you need to know to film yourself. Here is exactly where you need to upload. It would upload, we'd get it, and we'd give it straight to the edit. It was all everything. I mean, in that one, I think maybe a couple people went to houses to drop equipment, but I don't think we had a single crew member in anyone's house at that point. For that first one, we definitely didn't. But yeah, it's very much just being in constant contact with their representatives, making sure that the talent knows exactly what we need, making sure that the creative directors are, a lot of them were on Zooms, talking them through some things. Sometimes they were on their own. I mean, Derek Huff, his entire performance was completely directed and edited and choreographed by him. Like, that was unreal. Ariana Grande made her performance and edited hers at home, like a bunch, which is what I thought was really cool, that a lot of them were like, I have the time, why won't I do this right now? So like a lot of them were like took ownership, which was really, really cool. But yeah, I mean, it's very much just dealing with the different people, dealing with the network. That one I was dealing with, we had the original cast of High School Musical, and then like 30 Disney Channel people from like High School Musical, the series, from Zombies, from all the different newer Disney stuff. And I was just in constant contact with them and their reps, being like, hey, we need this from you guys. Like, can you guys post this on the night of the show? Like, just basically being their person on the production, letting them know everything, giving them anything they need. All that stuff. Just making sure that everything goes as planned.
It works well.
I'm a very OCD person, so it definitely helps in the industry. Yeah, it definitely helps in this industry.
I think what was like really impressive about that show was how in sync all of the artists were with one another, and how high quality the audio was. Because I mean, in my mind, you don't really edit audio like that on the spot, so like for some of their voices to like come out like that on the show, that was just incredibly impressive if they didn't do any tuning.
Yeah, I mean, we had, I think there's definitely some sweetening. It's not live, so there's definitely some sweetening in there. But our music team, this woman, Eve Nelson, who did Disney, who did Little Mermaid with me as well, she's awesome. She crushed it. Her and her music team, they do the most amazing things. They rewrote songs. Like they moved around things to make sense so that they would make sense for people's voice parts. Like, they truly crushed it. She's awesome. She made the Scarn on The Office, so I told her she's royalty in my book.
That's funny.
Yeah.
One person I had on the show, like, way back when, was Robert Simat, and he was the producer and writer of The Last Whistle, which was a film that was added to Netflix, and it's kind of like Friday Night Lights and whatnot. But I had the opportunity to have him on the show. We talked kind of about his experiences getting into the industry, starting with, I suppose, just short films, and then producing this film on a shoestring budget. And looking at you, you kind of had a different path into the industry. You really started off with Nickelodeon, I believe,
Yep.
if that's correct. I'm curious, kind of, what would you say was really the path to getting your foot in the door with Nickelodeon, and kind of what was the experience interning there and breaking out your career from that point forward?
Totally. So first off, it wasn't out of college. First off, every job is way easier to get as an intern. I will definitely say that. Every company needs interns, so like you could work for some pretty crazy cool companies as an intern because they just need interns, and it's a lot easier than applying to their website as an adult. But even then, the reason I actually was able to get my foot in the door at Nickelodeon was because of the college I went to, Emerson. They're very big on internships and telling you to use your summers wisely and stuff. If you were planning on getting into the entertainment industry, I definitely recommend sophomore into junior year, junior to senior, doing internships if you can. I think you might have to wait till sophomore into junior year, or yeah, sophomore into junior year. I think you might have to wait for it now. But you learn so much. I've heard of people just like getting coffee or just doing silly things, but like that was where I like first like started understanding how networks and how these things actually worked. Mm-hmm. But I got there through Emerson because a friend had the email of the president of Nickelodeon.
Oh, wow.
And on a whim, I just emailed her about an internship, because who else are you going to email about an internship? And I did it like before I went to bed. Like I did all the wrong things. Like, don't send it at 10 o'clock at night. Like, there were so many wrong things. But less than 12 hours later, I had an email from her assistant being like, "Hey, Phil, Sima gave me your email." I'm sure, because most assistants are on their boss's email, I'm sure she saw it. I'm sure the president didn't send it to her. But she was like, "I see that you're an Emerson student. We don't take sophomores going into junior year, but we'd love to, or freshmen going into sophomore year, but we'd love to talk. I'd love to put you in touch with our internship coordinators. They can talk to you, give you a little informational, and talk to you about applying next year." And basically, I got an informational and then hit them up a year later and was like, "Hey, what's up? Do you remember me?" And they very quickly got me into a program.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a lot, like, when you're at that young age, it definitely is. I mean, even now, it definitely is about, like, don't think you really have anything to lose by sending the email. Because, like, if you don't get it, you didn't have it before you sent the email. And, like, generally, no one's gonna be like, "Fuck this person in their career. If I ever see their name again, I'm gonna..." Like, no one's gonna see your email and be like, "I plan to remember this name," and never let them work for me. Like, I don't know what things I told myself, but I was like, "Oh, don't email this famous producer and tell them you want to work on their set." Like, especially in the day of Twitter, and I mean, I'm sure Judd Apatow and all these people probably get like thousands of DMs, but like, it's not the craziest thing in the world to like start a hashtag. People start hashtag campaigns now and there's a kid who was big on TikTok who Bob Iger literally called him up because he was like, can we get Disney to see this? And like a bunch of people loved it. Young black kid Matthew Cherry posted it. A bunch of people posted it. And I mean, in this day and age with the way the internet works, it's so easy to get
famous.
Exactly. But be ready to do the work and have the work behind you so that it's not just, oh, I made this one cool thing, I don't really have anything else to show for it. But yeah, so Nickelodeon was very much that, and it was learning a lot of like how to be an adult, definitely very early on. I do remember one of my like they obviously internship programs, they do like how you're doing halfway through, and one of my things was not in a bad way, but just we need you to be a little more professional. Like, just it was basically they were saying that I like had like I talked to everybody like as if they were my friend and not a coworker, and I was just so like but like by the end they literally said, they were like, you're one of the only interns who actually listened to the stuff we said at the halfway point and like took it to heart and did it. So I was like very happy that I did that. But that first internship was very much like, what the fuck is going on, figuring this out. And internships are very much that, figuring it out, asking questions. You're meant, if you're there and you're asking questions and people are getting upset, that's not an internship that you should be. Like, the whole point of it is to be mentored. It's that's just that. So that internship then, since it was with Viacom, helped lead to my next summer internship, which was with MTV, where I PA'd for the first time. So that was learning about PA, production assistant. So that production assistant essentially is basically what it is. Production assistant. You assist the production. Basically anything that needs to happen that the production management team is dealing with, you are helping them out. Or that the production team is dealing with, you are helping them out. It could be anything from setting up tables and chairs for a production office, to running and getting the lunches or taking the lunch order. Like, PAing is the bottom of the totem pole. But so as an intern at MTV, I was actually able to, on some sets, because they were doing some summer programming, they'd bring some of the interns out to PA for them. So that was very cool. And then the fall after that, I went to LA for my final semester and worked with another Viacom company through my Viacom connections. And I ended up with Insurge Pictures and Paramount TV. Insurge folded back into Paramount, but they were Paramount's micro budget film company. But yeah, that was incredibly, I had one of the VPs brought me into a writers meeting for a new Friday the 13th. Like, such cool things that like you're like, how am I sitting in this room? And it's like, I know every internship isn't that, but if you do your shit right, if you are good at your job, if you ask questions, if you know what you're talking about, people will ask you to come and join them on these meetings. People will ask you to do these things. It's you don't want to be the one, hi, I'm this person, know who I am, but like, you also don't want to be the one in the corner who they're like, what's his name again, you know?
Yeah, you kind of have to get your foot in the door and make a name for yourself without falling too far on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Exactly.
Really.
And if you're gonna make a mistake, make it in the first week. That's right. Very much what I learned. I got a nickname and everything, but it was never made a mistake after it.
One of the things I saw on your website, though, you had a video on the top of your website, and I noticed in one of the clips you were sitting right next to Katy Perry, I think.
Yeah, that was actually one of my first times associate producing. I had just previously been on an MTV after show, Are You the One? The after show for that. I was the EP's assistant / a production associate, like helping the production team in all facets that they needed. And her plate started getting bigger, and I was doing a lot more creative stuff, and I was like, I think you would do a lot better with an assistant who's just devoted to being your assistant, and I'm doing a lot more creative stuff. So I was thinking about just being production associate, and she was like, we should bump you up to associate producer and get a new assistant. And I was like, okay, cool. So like that was my first associate producer gig because of this amazing woman, Tracy, who took a chance on me. And then following that, right after, most of the same team that I had worked with on that was brought on to Katy Perry's Witness Worldwide. And that was insane. 96 hours, completely live, never stopping. Literally, she slept and we filmed it. It was a crazy, like, 2 weeks. I loved every minute of it. I mean, there were so many cool people that came through those doors. It was incredibly interesting. I learned a lot about clearances. I was dealing with clearing music. It was cool. It was a very, very interesting time. But yeah, they shot a documentary during it, and I luckily show up in it in the trailer. So I was like, I'm definitely going to use this on my website. Well, especially because on the website, it's like a part where it says like, let's work together. And I'm like, here's me and Katy Perry. But yeah, it was a very cool experience. It was really cool. I mean, you on these things, it's like summer camp. You're with people for so many hours. Also, like, as some people know, when you go through stressful experiences with people, you kind of bond over it. So like, it's so crazy just like going through these things and doing this stuff for so many hours. And it's like you go to sleep and say goodnight to these people, wake up and say good morning to these people. It's crazy, but I don't think I could live in any other world.
That's awesome though. It seems like it's very hectic.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in a short period of time.
Very much so.
Yeah, just
people don't realize how short.
Yeah. Do you cross paths with a lot of actors or well-known people often when you're producing these shows, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, now during quarantine, not really passing them. It's more hopping on Zoom with them, or secretly not secretly, but like half the team is like blacked out on Zoom while like only like a producer and like there's like 45 people blacked out because like all their team is on there. Like, it's so funny sometimes. But no, I mean, there's so many crazy people who you do cross paths with. But again, very early on, in those internships and those PA gigs, you very much learn this is how it is. This is the industry. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, people geek out. Yes, people. My first ever live event was Disney's 60th, and Dick Van Dyke was on that. And literally, even stagehands were going up to him and asking for pictures. Like, there are people that like everyone gushes over, and then it's like, oh yeah, like I see this person on set and like they are famous and I think they're cool, but like I see it, but it gets normal just because it's your day job. They're normal. Right. I mean, I still have I don't know if you want to call them rose tinted glasses, but I still have them on for like majority of celebrities, but like it's definitely taught me that like they are normal people. Mm-hmm. This is a profession like anything else. And if you don't act like a crazy person, you might actually have some sort of a friendship or relationship with this person.
That's the thing though. Like, I mean, people who just watch television shows or movies, looking from the outside in, they think that actors are not necessarily superheroes, but they're kind of like a different breed of people just because of their status and because they see them on the television, for example. So
they also think that they asked for their status. Like when people are like, if you don't want people chasing after you, then you shouldn't have become famous. And it's like, you mean she shouldn't have acted in that Sundance film that won all those awards and she never knew she'd be famous? Like, I hate that aspect of it where people are like, you're famous, so you can't be depressed or you can't have a political opinion. It's like, they're literally humans. They are American citizens like anyone else. Like, it's... Yeah.
TMZ, we're looking at you right now.
Yeah. Or just whenever anyone uses the term as like Hollywood as a monolith and like
Yeah.
being like, oh, Hollywood does, and it's like Hollywood is so many different things. Do you know how many like very, very right wing people are like? There are so many like Trump supporting people in Hollywood, but people seem to think it's like only the people who are speaking out on the award shows. No, they're just winning all the awards though.
Yeah, I guess like entertainment just is very interesting because there's a lot of eyes on it. I mean, you have paparazzis.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful with what you say at these award shows. I know there's been tons of issues in the past with that, and then you have like the scandals with a lot of the executive producers and CEOs of entertainment companies. I think it was like Weinstein was one of them. Weinstein, maybe? It was.
Yeah,
It was
Harvey
like,
Weinstein, scum of the earth.
yeah, it's just like a lot of shit shows, and I mean, you're under the microscope in the industry. I mean, all eyes are on you in so many different ways that it's hard not to be outside of the spotlight, one would think. I mean, you might have a different perspective on this, but I think just reading these things on the internet, you kind of get this sort of impression about the industry.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who stay out of it sometimes. I mean, like Tom Hanks. I mean, besides COVID stuff, he stays out of the news. Like, there are actors who do stay out of that limelight, whether it be literally not living in Hollywood and only coming to film a movie, or a lot of movies aren't even filmed in LA anymore, so not even ever needing to go to Hollywood except for a premiere. But I don't think nobody is asking for the way people treat them. But again, anyone in any like public light will have scrutiny they'll be scrutinized, but as long as you can just know your worth, know what you are creating, what you are doing is good, then that's like it. That's why I like don't look at ratings. I mean, it's great if we get good ratings, but like I don't care about ratings, like some ratings of a show, or I don't care about like Little Mermaid people. A lot of reviews were upset about what we didn't have, and I was like, they were upset that it was more film and less live, and I was like, but like, what about the actual part that we did have? You're only talking about what we didn't. So it's like, to me, I'm like, you just have to learn how to like switch your thinking and not be like, well, they shit all over the thing I made, so that means I'm really
Everyone's
bad at my
a
job.
critic, Phil.
Yeah, exactly. You're never gonna please everyone. If there's a kid who was at their house singing and it made them happy, then it made me happy. Like the fact that I was able to do something like that, the fact that I'm starting work on Monday on the Emmys, like it's these things that like, there are so many times when I do get like stressed out at my job, but I'm also like, if you had this conversation with 12-year-old Phil, he'd slap you across the face and be like, dude, you're working on this show. Just be happy right now. I mean, also like, know your worth and don't let people treat you like shit. But also, yeah, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting world, but I knew I was getting into it. I mean, it was either me acting or doing this, so I was choosing this crazy world regardless. But yeah, it's definitely the politics has put everything to the front stage now, though. I feel like every facet of everything is dealing with politics now because everything is politics.
Yeah, I feel the same way about it. It's a complicated kind of situation, but you've worked on different areas of the industry and with, I guess, dozens of companies, as I've mentioned before, from ABC, CBS, Walt Disney, Paramount, Nickelodeon, Lifetime, you name it, you've probably worked with them. I mean, we've talked about a lot of some of the issues that the industry faces with, I guess, perceptions and critics, but what would you share with people about the industry that they wouldn't normally see, just to give people a bit more perspective about the work that goes into what you do?
Well, off of what everyone else is doing first, I will say that very much so people do not realize how many people are involved. They do not realize, and that is the point though. If it is good, you don't notice the set, you don't notice these but like the amount of hours that the art departments were working on those props, on those set pieces, on researching the type of costuming, because in 1897 the dresses that women wore changed, or like all of these things that you don't even think about. It's like people think it's just all there, and they don't realize how much work in how many departments and how many people. Like when people are like, that movie cost this much to make. First off, you have to pay humans to make a movie, but then on top of that, like all of these things, it's just like the work that is put in. The reason you're like, how did that cost that much to make, is because you don't notice anything. If you did notice something, it would probably be cheap. Yeah. Like, I'm sure, I mean, I don't know budget wise, but like, I'm sure majority people don't realize that Parasite, the house, is the entire house and the apartment and street of the family is fake.
What?
It was all a set.
Are you kidding me? That looked like a house.
And the top floor of the house is CGI'd on when they're doing the establishing shots. The main floor is completely built on a set. The parents' basement and their alleyway is completely a set, but you don't realize that because of the amazing effort that was put. And that's the thing. I think my biggest takeaway from working in the industry is not realizing how many people put so much work and so much time into these things, and just the grips and you've all seen the ends of movies. The best boy and the all gaffers and all these things that you're just like, what is that? What is that? And sometimes I'm still learning what positions are, but it's so crazy to me how people think movies and these things come together so like quickly and haphazardly, when it's like, even if it is done in like a lot of the times I work on these things that like we put up something in 2 months, we put up something in 2 weeks. And even though it is all done quickly, it is done incredibly well by some of the most talented people. It's truly been a pleasure and an opportunity to work with the people and production companies I've worked with, just because of the stuff that I've worked on. Because it's not lost on me the coolness of a lot of the things I've worked on. I try and keep my cool, but I mean, no, I don't. I mean, everyone knew I was geeking out over the High School Musical cast. Like that. Yeah, I keep my cool to a certain point because I'm also like me, and people know my personality, and I am just like a loud, crazy person. So like, they know it's like not me being like, I'm gonna stalk this person and murder them. It's more of a, oh my god, I love this person's work and I appreciate them so much. But yeah, it's a very interesting industry, I will say that.
I think people underappreciate how much work goes into some form of art, especially in this case. So like, if you just sit down and watch the credits of a film, you're gonna just see it scrolling for a few minutes, and you're gonna see people who are working in different areas that you've never even heard of. And it just goes to show like how much work goes into producing a film or a TV show.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating.
Dude, even second team, most people don't even know. Like a team that literally goes out and shoots things that aren't with the main cast that like they just need in the show. Like, people don't know that that's actually a job that like is a thing. Like, you could not meet any of the cast on a show because you're in the second. Like, it's very interesting.
One thing I'm like really curious about the sets though is what happens to all the props and sets once they're done. Do they just get dismantled, or are they typically reused for like a future film?
I mean, it definitely depends. I mean, you have the studios who have their like sets. I mean, the Universal backlot, it's like you notice it in movies when you see it. Like, it's just known. I mean, it depends. Sometimes they're just taken down. I mean, if it's just painting walls and putting down carpets and stuff, it's just ripped up and stuff. But I mean, like, say it's something like a TV show, and I was on Broad City for the last few weeks of the final season, and the props department and wardrobe departments will actually send out a PDF with like all the stuff that's like been in Abby's department or been in Alana's apartment, and their clothes and this and that, and it'll have visuals, it'll have like numbers, and people can request them, or people can get them, and if you put in your request first, then you'll get that random chair from that episode. Like, so it's at the end, it's sometimes just like, that's why sometimes you'll see like directors still have like a random thing. Yeah, it's very very, very cool that they are just like, all right, who wants this thing and who wants that thing?
I think that's freaking awesome, just to be able to have
it's definitely cool.
A film like that. Like, I don't know, just having the T-800 from one of the Terminator films, that'd be like an epic. But
yeah, I'm sure that is something that like goes to a Smithsonian, but like other things, a gun from Terminator would probably go to yeah.
So one of your goals is to own a production company and producing content to entertain and inspire people. One of the things I'm really curious about is what exactly goes into starting a production company, and what do you envision some of the content to be?
Money definitely is what I mean. Realistically, it's really what it is. Money and like wanting to be the one who has the say. That's why so many actors are starting production companies nowadays. Because they know that they can then produce their own stuff, and they can produce something and star in it, or just produce it and make stuff that they want to get made. And when you have a name behind yourself, people will help finance it and invest. But yeah, money definitely helps. Also, just experience and clout. I would say, just like having the experience and having worked with enough people that like someone will be like, oh, let's bring these people on. And there are all different shapes and sizes, production companies. I've definitely been lucky to work with some bigger ones. But I mean, production companies come in any size. Also, anyone can really make a production company and just start making content. It's really just, when I say I want a production company, I want my own place to be able to make the stuff that I want to make, / still be able to make stuff that I've worked on, but just do it the way I've wanted to.
Isn't that what YouTube is for, though? Because, you see, like, people go on YouTube and make names for themselves, and they're just multimillionaires producing some pretty fascinating, or, I guess, really impressive content out there, and people watch it. You'll see some of these producers on YouTube making, I think, there's like 8 million views per a single video. That's impressive in my eyes, you know?
Oh yeah, I know the YouTube world very well. I have a lot of friends who are in it. I dated a girl who was in it as well, so I definitely understand that whole aspect. And it is definitely democratized a lot, because even just thinking of people who got some sort of a footing because of YouTube, like Broad City, they had a Broad City web series on YouTube before the show. The Workaholics guys had mail order comedy on YouTube. Donald Glover was in Derek Comedy, and all their stuff was huge when I was in high school and middle school on YouTube. So it's a lot of people. Some people use it as a place to set up camp, while others use it as a place to just be able to promote their stuff more. I definitely, I don't think my first production company's production isn't going to be a giant award show. I think it would definitely be like a web series for some sort of a network, or a YouTube channel or something. But also, just having been in the industry, I understand how things work, and I know certain people who need to be talked to, or certain places you need to send emails to be like, hey, we have a full series, you guys don't have to do any work other than publishing it. Do you want to take this from, like, it's those things where like you're just like learn how the business works and learn how those things kind of work. So I'm definitely percolating on things. I don't want to say a time period on this podcast because then it holds me accountable, or maybe it should. I don't know. Maybe by hopefully 30, I will have some semblance of a production company. But yeah, I definitely am learning what I can from the production companies I work at, learning how they operate, learning the ways I like how things operate, and learning the ways that I don't like how things operate.
That's the thing, though. You just kind of have to learn by doing. You see what other people do. So. You see what they do right, what they do wrong, and then you kind of just make your own vision for, in this case, what a production company would look like. And
100%.
You're looking for investors, so I mean, people out there who are listening to the show, I'll point you in their direction. I'll put a link in the description for that.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah, it takes up a lot of money, it seems like.
Oh yeah. Good television, movies. I just want. I said, I was talking to a friend. I want the kind of content that gives people chills, which I've learned is called Frisson,
I think.
Frisson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
there's a whole subreddit dedicated to that.
Yeah. But I've learned what it's called, and I'm like, I get that sometimes when I'm listening to something, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I've found out that some people call it chills and they don't actually get them, but like, I do, and like, I want to be able to give that to people with the kind of content I make, where it's just like, you're being entertained, but you're also like, fuck, this is more than that. This is touching me somewhere else.
And that's like the purpose of commercials. Like, they only have 30 seconds to send across a message, so you'll see a lot of friction occur with commercials because they have to make it,
or music videos.
Exactly,
dude. That's why you have very visual directors in those two medium. Those kind of directors go back and forth. I mean, Joseph Kahn, he's a big commercial and music video director. He's Taylor Swift's like go-to guy. He also made one of my favorite movies, Detention. But yeah, he's goes back and forth between music videos and commercials. But yeah, very much so. It's you have to elicit an emotion very quickly and get the person hooked and thinking about it even thereafter.
Yeah, props to them for being able to do that. That's no easy feat. So yeah. One thing is that I personally can't speak for the industry as a whole, or any part of the industry for that matter. But I can imagine, based off what you're telling me and based off what I've seen in the past, it's a very dog-eat-dog world, and it really just attracts the best of the best. So what would you say from your own experience separates those who want to make it in the industry from those that don't?
I think it's a couple things. I don't think it's so much a dog-eat-dog as it's like you're both sprinting on the same track trying to get in front of each other, but like you're not actively fighting. It's like you're both trying to do the same thing, but it's like you know what I mean? Like you're competing, but you're not like fighting. Mm-hmm. Like that, just because I think the biggest thing about the best thing in this industry, at least in my opinion, and it's the kind of stuff that I want to make, is you should be making connections. You should be meeting people. You shouldn't be burning bridges. You shouldn't be like pushing someone out of the running for assistant because you want it more. Like, you should be building these bridges because those people who are your age, those people around your age are going to be coming up with you. They're going to be the head of a studio. They're going to be in it. Like, my mentality is like, I don't think be fake and make those connections, but like, I think the best work comes from people who are connected, people who are friends, people who have that brainwave relationship. Like Lonely Island, Seth and Evan, all the Apatow guys, like anything that comes out of those people is good just because it's people who know each other making stuff together. It's like their brains are all working on the same wavelength. Mm-hmm. And I just think that you can't go around this industry thinking like, I gotta make my way to the top and it doesn't matter who I step on to get there. Like, I'm very against the belief that you need to be an asshole in this industry. I am very much like that's
a misconception I keep hearing about.
That's
the industry,
number one on my, well, because what you hear like the Ari fucking Golds of the world, where it's like, oh, that guy's Hollywood and like that's how Hollywood acts. And it's like, yes, there are really shitty old white dudes who are still thinking that it's the fucking old way and that this is how it flies. But as you're seeing, they're getting kicked out very quickly. And you're learning that, like, to me, anyone has a good idea. Anyone can have a good idea. So, like, the whole, like, I'm at the top and you're at the bottom, so you know nothing idea is such a shitty idea to me. And to, like, treat people poorly to think it will make them do any better for you, I think is a whole way. So if you are working for someone who is treating you shitty, like, very much know your worth. Know that you do not have to put up with that. It is not what every job in the industry is like. Like, I feel like you hear about, like, they needed to pay their dues and and it's like, no, nobody deserves to have a phone thrown at their head. Like, that's not normal. Like, and I'm of the idea, I definitely do. There are definitely some things where people are like, just put your head down. It's how it is. But, like, I'm very much of the idea of, that's how it is because people let it be how it is. But also, you always have the thing behind you of, which, especially when you're very early on, you hear people say, well, they'll just hire someone else. Because in those PA jobs, it's like, we can hire someone else to do this. We don't need, like, that, like, it's, so at that, when you're younger, you're like, I need to do this. I can't screw up. I can't do this. I can't. And you think, like, oh, I got fired off this show. I'll be blacklisted from the industry. People, like, some people know people, but it's such a large industry. It's so massive, but it also is a small industry. So don't be a complete piece of shit, because that will get around as well. But that's also the other thing. I mean, Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, all these things, those things were known. Like, they were, I mean, Seth Rogen, South Park, all these people have made fun of these things years before they actually come out. And it's like, because people know it's real, it's just no one's doing anything about it. Yeah. Definitely went in a weird direction.
No. The thing is, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this is the real stuff that, like, I want people to hear on this show, and here you are, just, like, sharing it. So I'm like, I'm gonna let you preach. I'm gonna give you the soundboard right now. So honestly, I love what you have to say, because it's real, and I think it's a perspective or a side of the story that people aren't really, not necessarily open to hearing, but something they just don't hear generally. So it's good for them just to get that perspective, or to hear it from someone who actually works in the industry, to see what it really is like, you know?
Totally. And to really answer the question that you started with, though, besides networking, which is very important, just, like, knowing how to take direction. When you're starting out, you're a PA for a very long time. It is so, to me at least, I think, it is so easy to be a good PA because you just get told what to do and you do it. But it is also so easy to be a bad PA. And it's just like, if you don't pay attention, if you don't ask questions, so you bring back the wrong thing, like, it's just, you can do so little as a PA and people will be like, whoa, he's great. And then you're like, what?
Just put in the effort.
I just did this. And it's like, oh, because they're all sitting on their phone right now. And it's like those just little things where it's like, just show your initiative, just show that you want to learn more, show that you make sure they know your name. Because again, like I said, people always think, oh, it's all about who you know. You need to have a cousin who's a studio head. It's not that. It's like, it's all about, for the fact that, like, yes, they have production listing websites and stuff like that where you can get jobs, but realistically, majority of my jobs have come from knowing people, have come from an EP being like, we need someone, let's bring on Phil. Back when I was a PA, it's production managers who are calling, and if they know you're a PA that they can trust, anytime they need a PA, they'll call you up and say, hey, are you available? And it's just that easy. So it's like, that's what it means about networking. It's making sure people know you can do your job and making sure they know your name. Like, if you're consistently bringing water to the writers, they're going to know who you are. If you consistently are bringing them their lunch, they're going to know who you are. You can chat them up. Like, they're normal people. It's definitely, you learn the times to speak up and the times to just shut up and who to speak up in front of, but generally it's people understand. I very early on would get so, I have anxiety, but would just get it so in my head about like, oh no, did I fuck this up? And it's like, you're the only one thinking about it. Nobody else, you did it and nobody else thought about it afterwards, and you're the only one who's been thinking about it for 2 days. Like, so it's so, it's very interesting. It's yeah.
I think it applies to like all industries though. I think people need to go in with a mindset of just showing up and finding a way to be helpful. You just need to go in, ask questions, do what you need to do, and just show that you're taking initiative and really care about what you're doing. And if you do that, I think it really just opens up the door to a lot more opportunities than if you're kind of just being stagnant, sitting in the corner on your phone, doing nothing and hoping that everything in the world's going to come to you on a silver platter, because it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There are thousands or millions of people out there who are doing the same thing, and the ones who really just take initiative, show up, and do what they're there to do, those are the ones that are really going to get ahead and that are going to make progress in whatever they're setting out to achieve in their own personal lives. So I think you put it very well, Phil.
Thank you. I like that I am able to actually have full, complete, coherent thoughts on here, because I feel like sometimes on my podcast I have 4 sentences that come out at once, and Tom is just like, "What are you saying?"
No, I get it. So you've been like probably more than a dozen projects so far. I could be wrong, but you've worked also with many different brands, as we've talked about before. Has any project or media group stuck out to you most in a positive way?
Positive?
Or negative, whichever.
First, 100% most positive in aspects of inclusivity. Broad City is one of the most inclusive and diverse sets I've ever worked on. From in front of the camera to behind the camera, just men, women, trans men, trans women, which are both also men and women, but just everyone of every gender, orientation, ethnicity, from grips to camera to the extras, like everyone on set. And it didn't feel like it was, we're all hiring for a diverse. It felt like this is what a set should be, because these people are all good at their jobs and they represent the world. Like it's so crazy to me how you could have these, like, I've been on productions that are dealing with like very, like, they're dealing with like a lot of stuff with Black culture, like hip hop and stuff, like, and it's a very white team, and it's you question, why is everyone here white when the audience that we're it's so interesting sometimes when you see these teams and you see people coming out and saying that we should have inclusivity riders and all these things, and it shows like Broad City that I want to be an example, to be like, this is how every show should be. Mm-hmm. Women behind the camera, like that was the other thing. It's so many women in technical roles, which are so much more men on so many other projects. So I thought it was a very cool way for what, at least I hope, the future of the industry is, where it is just everyone of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, everything can work in any facet. But yeah, that was so. Also, Broad City is the first project I worked on that I had actually liked and enjoyed the show and wanted to work on the show before working on it, and it was just a pure happenstance that I happened to get it. Craziest world that I got it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was awesome. And then the award shows I've worked on, and like all the live event stuff, has been very, very cool. I mean, I always was someone who loved VMAs and movie awards and all those type things. So to be able to be behind the scenes, and I mean, as a production associate, I was the one making the envelopes for the winners. I knew who the winners were, like these like things that like the mic cube that goes on the mic. Like I literally posted on Facebook. I was like, "There's Beyonce holding my mic cube." Like just like cool things. It's those things that the childhood me I know would be very happy about, which is why last summer this is another one that will definitely be in my heart. But last summer I was working on a Netflix show which actually just dropped called Connected. It's just an office PA. But I dropped everything and quit that to go out to Los Angeles to work on Little Mermaid Live. And that was literally, I mean, I grew up doing theater. It was the live television industry, which I had for my career as a professional adult. And the two of them fused together. So I was like, I can't not do this. And that was one of the coolest things I've ever done, being at the Disney lot, working with people from Disney, working with like literally the original film, and like being like, we really need this asset, and like them going in and getting it for coolest fucking job I've ever had. And I can only hope that I can do something like this again. I was the Easter eggs producer. Which I hope that when they do the next one, they actually make it a little more known that there are Easter eggs in there. But basically, one of my good friends, coworkers, someone who I consider a mentor, he brought me on, and one of the things he said he wanted me to do, he was like, I know you love Disney. I know you are a big pop culture person. He's like, I want you to find ways to fit Easter eggs into the live numbers. So basically, I was like tasked with going through Disney's catalog and being like, what could we put into certain aspects of this, or what makes sense here? So it was like a lot of stuff ended up in Ariel's trove. Like Aladdin's lamp is down there, Mrs. Potts is down there. There's the coolest thing, and I literally said this to someone. I said to someone, it's crazy that I can say something and then it's made a week later, and someone was like, that's kind of what our jobs are. But like, I literally was like, it would be cool if we had the flag from Treasure Planet like brought across the stage, because one of the sailors is supposed to run a flag across the stage at the top number of the show, Fathoms Below. And I was like, could we do the Treasure Planet flag? And they literally made it for me, and it was a giant, they didn't even have, I had like a small image from the internet, and they had someone recreate it and then make it into a flag. And I was just like, this is so cool. But like, that was in there. The Moana Heart of Te swirl was on a couple boxes. There's a couple of things in there. The Beauty and the Beast, the novel on her vanity during If Only was Beauty and the Beast. There's a bunch of different Easter eggs in the show, but that was definitely one of the coolest parts. I also put sound effects into the live numbers, which was
that's awesome.
Insanity. That was, oh my god, that was going through the movie and finding sounds of bubbles in water. That was the most tedious thing I've ever had to do, but it was crazy cool, dude. Very cool.
That's awesome. Sounds like a lot of just really cool experiences that you've had at some of these companies. And of course, you've worked at a lot of them. You've done different types of projects for each of those. But, I mean, when push comes to shove here, looking back at where you started, what would you say entertainment means to you now?
Entertainment means to me now. I mean, it definitely used to just be a pure, like, just joy. Like, I used to just go to the movies and enjoy it because it was just entertaining. Now I see it as, I mean, I definitely see it as my job. I see it as, I still see it with that joy, but I also am looking deeper at everything I watch now with my critical eye, with my producerial eye. I definitely am looking deeper into what the choices that are made throughout the production are, whether it be casting choices or whether it be the budget that they're given to something that's supposed to be a space epic. Like, just I definitely am looking at entertainment with a much more critical eye than I did growing up. But that does not mean I still don't enjoy it just as much, if not more, because now I can, like, go ham on, like, every aspect. Go ham on every aspect of it, not just, I really like this movie. Yeah, but entertainment, like I said earlier in the podcast, is friggin' eternally changing. So 5 years from now, it could be completely different with what we might be watching everything on sunglasses.
Yeah,
on
you never know, like VR or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think VR is I mean, according to Secession, it's a bubble, but
3D was too. 3D glasses in movie theaters.
Dude,
oh my gosh.
Fuck 3D. I am all for the two things that I think movie theaters need to lose because they are bullshit are 3D, unless we go back to 50s 3D, and Limax.
Limax?
The movie...
Wait,
Limax.
Do you mean IMAX is like a fraud?
Well, the theaters where it's not actually like an actual IMAX screen and it's just 3 times larger than a movie screen isn't IMAX. They just years ago realized they could just put these into movie theaters and people would still pay like double a ticket price for it. So people go and see movies not actually in IMAX.
Oh, shit.
It's so... Like, I went to see Dunkirk and thought I was choosing an actual IMAX theater, and it wasn't. And I was like, I didn't even get to watch the cut I wanted to watch because I didn't see the thing. Like,
so how do you know it's an actual IMAX theater versus a fake one?
There's actually, if you look up like IMAX or Limax, someone created like a Google map that will be like, this is a fake one, this is a fake one, the only real ones are like ones at like the like science museums and stuff mostly. There's like the Universal City Walk one, I think, in LA. There's Science Museum one here in New York, I think. There's not as many, but like I guess the average moviegoer doesn't give as much a shit of me, but I will not pay for Limax. I hate it. And 3D just seems so superfluous to pay $20 to have the background look more like it has more depth. Why?
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
It made sense for Avatar. I understood it.
That sounds like a one and done, though. I mean, I don't think any other
100%.
movie warranted having 3D. And for me, I didn't really want to wear glasses just to watch a movie.
Exactly. You know? Well, James Cameron thinks that by Avatar fucking 4, we're gonna not have glasses and still be able to see 3D.
Goodness.
Yeah, we'll dude's doing crazy things though, so we'll see.
Yeah, props to that guy. So
yeah, he has 2 of the highest grossing films of all time, so he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. We are coming up to time here, Phil. But before we end the show, I always like to ask my guests 5 closing questions. So we will go ahead and jump right into it with question number 1. As a professional movie quoter, what is your favorite movie quote?
It's such a random one. It just came to the top of my head though. But Jason Segel's line in I Love You Man when he says, "Thank you for the sun-dried tomato aioli because it's a revelation," is just such a good line. It's such a great line. Oh, it's one of my favorite lines. I literally had to make a GIF for it because I couldn't find it. Yeah, I love that fucking line.
So you mentioned you're a world-class whistler. And
that I am.
Before this conversation, I was thinking to myself, I want him to tell the story of how that came to be, but I'm grappling with the idea of asking you to give us your best whistle on the show because I'm afraid you're going to end up destroying the eardrums of my listeners. I've given it some thought, so I think I'm going to stick with just tell us how that came to be.
How it became a world-class whistler? I'm not going to lie. I thought when you started mentioning the last whistle earlier that you were going to work this question in, and I was like, whoa, how did he work in the last guy to this
that
question?
Would have been impressive.
But the world-class whistler, I honestly put that on there. I wanted something on that page to like be a joke. I thought just having professional movie quoter on there would be like, why is that on there? And I figured world class whistler was a great thing to put right under it. But realistically, I've just always been a musical person, so I just always whistled. I didn't realize that like not everyone can whistle. And then at sleepaway camp in like 5th grade, one of my counselors, we were at a basketball game, and he was doing the whistle with your fingers, the loud one. And I was like, oh my God, teach me how to do that. And he taught me, and I was able to do it on the spot. And ever since, everyone's asked me how to teach them how to do it. And I can't teach a single person, even though I try to, but nobody ever does it. But yeah, so I've always just like done it and like consistently, like not like practice, but just like, but yeah. So, yeah, I just know that I can very much do tones and like whistle a song for you, and you'll know exactly the song it is, and really good breath control. So yeah, if anyone challenged me to whistling, I could probably take them on it.
Yeah, whistling is not easy to do. I can do it, but like some people are just able to like shift their tones like all the time with it. And that's impressive for someone to be able to do. So props to them.
Oh yeah.
If you were given a budget of $100 million and were given complete control over writing and directing a production of your choosing, what would you create?
Whew. So I'm writing and directing, or I have complete control over who writes and directs?
I guess complete control over who writes and directs, even if it's just yourself.
Well, I would definitely want to be in on the writing, but gotta get my boys Phil Lord and Chris Miller in there, because they are geniuses and literally take anything and turn it good. They're 21, 22 Jump Street, Lego Movie. Yeah, they are the best. Would definitely have Taika Waititi directing, because I love that man. And he absolutely crushes it. And it would be, honestly, probably something about, $100 million. It's like part of me wants to do just, I've always wanted to do a camp story, but I'm like, if I have $100 million, I'm going to do something way bigger than a camp story. This is a hard one, man. Let's circle back to this one.
What advice would you give to someone who is interested in breaking into the industry, but who has no idea where or how to start?
You don't need to go to film school, but if you want to learn more and you're planning on going to college anyway, it's great. Though literally no one probably knows that I was a film major at any of my jobs, so it really doesn't matter. But just know your worth. Make sure people know your name for good reasons. And just listen. And when it's time to speak up, have something good to say.
So this last question might overlap with the prior question we're circling back to, but we'll give it a shot here. You're given the opportunity to produce a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl. What is your message?
Yeah, I mean, it's August 2020. I can't not be like, Black Lives Matter, arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. Like, that's really what my message would be.
It's your it's your message, Phil.
Arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. That's my message. Fuck it. Yeah. It's yeah. I should hope that by February next year we still aren't waiting for that arrest. But yeah, it's just we are living through a movement right now, and things are definitely heated in this country, and people are just asking for equality. People are just asking for a seat at the fucking table. So
that's the truth, honestly. Like, there's a lot of...
It's all we want. We all just want to feed our family, have a home. Like, it shouldn't be this hard to be a compassionate human.
100% agree with you, Phil.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a good message. I respect it. And, it's a 30-second commercial, so,
Yeah, I don't know how much we can do. I'm not going to have Kendall Jenner handing a fucking Pepsi to someone. Yeah.
So, circling back to question number 3 about your film.
Oh, oof. I don't know. 100 million. I mean, there's this.
We're making Toy Story 5.
Right? No, there's two. Oh no. Fuck yes. You give me 100 million, I will make. Oh no, I don't know if I'd want to ruin something from my childhood. I wouldn't ruin it. I make it great. Someone's gonna remake Small Soldiers. I want it to be me. I love that movie. So if you give me 100 million, I'd probably remake that. Yeah, that movie is it's a classic movie. Yeah, it's a solid movie. Also, it's very much against military, so I'm all for that. Yeah, I am Archer, emissary of the Gorgonites.
Love it.
I'll always be a big fan, yeah.
So, Phil Rosenberg, this has been a really entertaining conversation. I really loved talking about everything from growing up to producing and writing and all things the entertainment industry. But before we go, if anyone is interested in learning more about you, following you, or investing, where can they reach you?
I am at the Philberg, ThePhilberg. Literally everywhere. I tried to make sure that I was at the Philberg everywhere so that you would not be able to mess it up. My new website that is on a soft launch, but I'll probably launch it next week. Thephilberg.com. Literally anything is just the Philberg. If you look up the Philberg, you'll find me. Also, my podcast, Flick Picks. We're at Flick Picks on Twitter and Instagram. Flick Picks with Phil and Tom. We're on all streaming sites. You can find that on my website as well. Yeah, if you are on Letterboxd, also hit me up there. I love movies, so I'll chat movies with you. Yeah. Also, just advice. I realized I didn't give full straight up advice to people who have no idea where to start. There are a lot of production listing websites, a lot of Facebook groups. The internet is your friend. Also, if you ever feel like DMing and asking a question, I will answer in a timely manner. But feel free to shoot me a question if you have it. I literally just had my mom reach out to ask if a friend's daughter could reach out to me. So I'm always happy to chat with people. I know I too was young and starting out and wanting to know what the hell this industry is. So feel free to reach out.
Absolutely love it. So thank you so much, Phil. I appreciate your time. I appreciate chatting. It's been an incredible conversation.
I appreciate it. Dude, this was great. I was very glad to come on.
So that will do it for this episode of the All Things Interesting podcast.
Energy is a timeless force.